The cam thought friend zone. Yuck. Love doll sales on the rise. Let's see this one.
Hi.
Let me make sure this is good all the way through and make sure there isn't like a... Probably fine.
Hey everyone, SaneMan here. This video is brought to you by a donation from James. He didn't send me a specific topic, so I've decided to cover a very interesting article I recently came across called Doll Shops Can't Keep Up with Demand During Coronavirus Lockdown. Apparently female chameleons have figured out that if you can't beat them, i.e. the dolls, then join them. In the article, Janet Stevenson, a co-founder of a doll company in Florida, said this, and I quote, "We're hiring as quickly as we can, and we've created several new roles in fulfillment management and customer support in both the United States and Europe. What's interesting about this massive increase in demand is that we're also seeing a changing demographic, which is very positive for the doll industry and speaks to changing attitudes at home," Stevenson told Forbes. "What we're seeing now is doll use is going mainstream, with both men and women enthusiastic about bringing a doll home into their bedroom." The co-founder of the company...
If that's something you're into, who cares? Great. Do that. It's fine.
Stevenson's husband, Amit, says couples are also fueling demand. "We're seeing the industry go through a huge revolution during the pandemic."
That's kind of interesting. In a way, having sort of a threesome, but one of the members is like an inanimate object. It's interesting. A simulated threesome. That's an expensive way to go about it, but hey, do you.
With a huge increase in orders from both couples and male and female singles, he told the UK's Daily Star. So there you have it, folks. Women have decided that it's better to let their husbands have dolls and play with them instead of being scared of the technology. But have they just let in a Trojan horse, or should I say Trojan whore, into the bedroom?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. If you're the kind of person, male or female, or other, if you're NB, let's say you decide that everything that is within a monogamous relationship that you value can be achieved via an inanimate hunk of silicone. Honestly, your partner probably dodged a bullet on that one. Because if you get everything that you need out of a relationship out of an inanimate object, then chances are you were already objectifying your partner in the first place.
Explore this and more in just a moment. But let me first tell everyone about today's sponsor, the MGTOW Book Collection. Tim Patton has written 5 MGTOW books. MGTOW is Forever is the latest and is a great introduction to MGTOW.
Look at that cover. Can we go back and look at that cover?
Books. MGTOW is for...
Look at that cover! You know, I've never published a book, but even if I were to self-publish something on Amazon or whatever, I'd pay someone to make a professional cover so it doesn't end up looking like this. Oh no.
Forever is the latest and is a great introduction to MGTOW. If you've been injured on the job and need help, disabled and unable to work is for you. MGTOW Building Wealth and Power helps you empower your finances.
Why do all the MGTOW books have a masculine, like, sexy dude on the cover? Like, does the homoeroticism just fly right over their head, or what?
Masculinity is Our Future is about how the world sees masculinity as toxic, and what it means to be a man. Finally, MGTOW Why I Cheat. When a woman named Marcia read this book, she wanted to scream out loud, "Why is MGTOW a real thing?" Thanks for pushing her buttons, Tim. All 5 books can be found at the sponsor link down.
My least favorite kind of a person is a person who just, like, gets super happy whenever they upset someone. Oh ho ho, you sure did trigger that person. Like, stop. Stop.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Mock turtleneck with 100 bits. I don't advocate burning books, but I'll make an exception for these. Sorry to Dave Rubin.
Below. Anyways, now back to the video. I haven't really given it much thought before, but what benefit would a woman have buying a doll for the husband or boyfriend that she's in a committed relationship with?
I mean, for the same reason you'd probably buy something like a dildo or a vibrator or a flashlight or whatever. It's a tool in the bedroom or something you can use on your own when your partner isn't necessarily up for, like, doing sexy stuff right now. Like, there are 1,000,001 reasons to get sex toys. It's just another sex toy.
First of all, it reduces the risk that the guy's going to go out and look outside the relationship for another woman.
I don't think if you're in a relationship, you're going to get your husband or boyfriend or whoever a sex doll in the hopes that they're not going to go cheat. Because if you're already concerned they're going to go cheat, then you have bigger problems in your relationship than buying a sex doll.
She doesn't have to worry about her plow horse prancing away if she gives him a doll to plow instead. She also doesn't have to put out as much because she can tell her husband, "I'm not interested tonight."
Holy shit, do MGTOW people think women don't like sex? I mean, the women they've slept with probably don't like sex because I imagine they're probably not very good at it, but generally speaking, women are into sex.
Why don't you go play with your dolls? If he complains and she's the one that actually bought it for him, then it'll stir up drama. And she'll pretend to get pissed off, telling him that she paid for the doll and he doesn't appreciate it or her. Even if he doesn't.
Why in this imaginary scenario is she, like, manipulative? What?
End up using it when she suggests she can use that as an excuse to stir up even more drama. To all the guys in relationships out there, beware of women bringing dolls into your house. The object that leads to the sexual liberation of many single men leads to greater slavery for the man that's already married. Don't think that women haven't already figured this out. They're probably already plotting ways to use the dolls to their favor. Or if they haven't done it already, then they're in the process of figuring it out. If you have a partner and she buys you a doll, she can force you to bang it even if you don't want to.
What? What? How did this discussion about people buying sex toys go into somehow coercing someone into using a sex doll when they don't want to? What the fuck?
And get off on the sick pleasure of watching you get little to no pleasure from a giant piece of silicone. It's ironic that for one type of man, the doll equals freedom, yet it equals slavery for another.
What? What is this imaginary scenario? Is this like a fetish thing? That he has this, like, fantasy where, like, oh no, my wife's gonna make me have sex with a sex doll even though I don't want to. And hey, if that's your kink, that's fine. Like, do you. I am not for kink shaming. Whatever you're doing with consenting adults or inanimate objects, as long as you own them, do you. But, like, this is so specific. It seems like a weird fetish thing.
Another advantage to owning dolls is that you can always put them in the back seat when you're riding with your husband and can take advantage of the 3-person carpool lane.
What? People are not buying sex dolls to use in the carpool lane. I feel like there was like a comedy or something that made fun of that. I don't remember which. I know Larry in Curb Your Enthusiasm once got a prostitute in order to use the carpool lane, but I feel like there's and I know Kramer, I think, did something with the carpool lane. I know on King of the Hill, one of the people used a full body cast in order to try and use the carpool lane. Blossom's Joey did that. Okay.
I saw one guy with 2 dolls, put one of them up in the front seat and one in the back. I also have 2 of them, so don't think I never thought about that before. But this is Canada. If the cops caught me with them, they'd probably confiscate my dolls and put them in their evidence locker for later. Another benefit for women with regards to dolls is if you're a woman that owns the company manufacturing them, you can hire female workers to manufacture them for you. In essence, if it's mostly incels buying them...
I'd imagine men and women work for the companies that produce these things. It's just a job. I've seen it was actually a pretty interesting documentary. It was about a company that produces sex toys. And it was pretty interesting. It was fun how they seem to have a good sense of humor about what they do for a living, but a lot of them work either customer service for, like, if people have issues with their products, or they help recommend products to people over the phone or whatever. Like, it's just a job to these people. It's just another job.
Then that's money and resources that never would have gone to those women anyways. At first, women freaked out about the technology, now they're starting to scheme with it.
I've literally never heard a woman freak out about this. I've heard plenty of MGTOW and incel people say that, like, oh, women should be concerned about all the sex dolls, but, like, no, I don't think anyone is. Why would they be? Most people aren't in relationships specifically for the sex stuff. Sex stuff is awesome, but, like, it's not the purpose for the relationship you're in, right? Do incels and MGTOWs not get this? Are they so focused on getting that nut that they do not understand that many people are in relationships for, like, romantic reasons and reasons of companionship and, like, all sorts of other stuff? Do they really think you're getting into a marriage and some people are married for 50 fucking years just because they're a coomer? Like, what?
Janet says that her doll company is receiving hundreds more inquiries during the pandemic than usual. But how are we supposed to believe that? After all, if she makes it sound as though the dolls are in short supply, then it creates a sense of urgency for would-be buyers. If everyone else is getting them, then I need to have one too. It's the fear of missing out.
How are you gonna know that everyone's getting one? How are you gonna know your neighbor Carl has a sex doll? I doubt he's gonna announce it to the neighborhood. Like, if my neighbor gets a dildo, they don't go, hey, I just bought a dildo. It's pretty great. You should get one. Like, that's not typically how conversations go about sex dolls or sex anything with people.
But how do you really know that Janet Stevenson and her husband are really getting orders from couples and single women? Maybe 99% single guys, but it's possible that they use a publicist to convince the author of this piece from the New York Post to write a piece about them. When you read stories in newspapers about real estate prices going up, and so-called agents and experts telling the person writing the article about the market, a lot of the time what you're actually reading is actually a product placement. A lot of newspaper reporters are paid $50 to write an article. Could it be possible that the author of this piece got her $50, but she also got another $100 to $200 from the doll company as a sort of promotion? I've known publicists whose business was to match their clients to newspaper reporters and TV hosts, so no one really knows what the real story behind this is. As for the dolls, I strongly believe that women will adapt to them being around instead of just allowing themselves to be rejected and ejected. Towards the end of the article, this couple of doll creators, no pun intended, also said that they're working on another doll that has a heartbeat inside of it, so if you fall asleep, it feels like you're with a real person.
I understand theoretically the purpose behind that, but it creeps me out. This cold, dead lump of silicone, which is completely fine if you have one. I don't really care. But, like, it just laying there, and just within its chest you hear the thump, the thump, the thump. Ooh. When do we get the killer sex doll movie? Hollywood, get on it. And we can have a crossover where Chucky from Child's Play fights the sex doll.
That was one of the easiest ideas I had. To develop life-size human dolls for senior citizens' nursing homes so they wouldn't...
Devious Chillster with 50 bits. Imagine waking up in the morning and it's moved a little and you know no one touched it that night. Yep.
...feel as lonely when they slept. I visited a few old people in nursing homes and their faces would light up if they saw a doll or one of those service dogs that would be around every so often and they could pet them too. I definitely think that interactive robot technology and dolls would make all the difference in the world to them. Plus, it would be a great way to get the public to become accepting of technology like that outside of the sexual applications.
I'm switching to the face cam for this because, obviously, you don't need to see the weird sexualized imagery he's using.
I also think that dolls and robots need incremental improvements in additions to the technology, instead of just expecting some company to come up with a perfectly functional and completely android-like Mr. Data and Drag. This article from the New York Post is interesting because it features...
Yikes. You could have used LOL as an example. Data had a daughter named LOL.
It's a couple that works on this technology together. If it were just a man working on the company alone, I'm wondering if the article would have ended up being as positive. Of course, dolls are becoming more popular during a pandemic. I'm sure that many guys will buy them, and when this is all over, they will stop dating altogether, because they will realize why they want a woman in their lives. And it's not for companionship and conversation, if you know what I mean.
Holy shit. Does this guy legitimately think men do not care for companionship or romance within a relationship? Yikerinos.
So women will adapt to this world full of dolls and robots and instead offer female validation, learn to cook as well as the art of conversation. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next year or two someone sends me a video request saying they went over to their new girlfriend's house and she brought out a sex doll and it surprised them and they thought to themselves that this girl isn't like all the rest. What they don't realize is the doll is just plausible deniability so she doesn't have to give you pleasure. You heard
What?
it here first, folks. Don't fall for a woman with a real-life sex doll in her bedroom. Plus, how do you know it didn't belong to her ex-husband and then she pretty much got it in the divorce? Or if they weren't married, she didn't just get it in the micro-divorce. No siree, Bob. Women will not lose their minds with love dolls in the long term. They lost their minds at first thinking that they could be replaced, and now they see it as a way to get paid and not have to put in the effort to help their man get laid.
What the fuck? His entire view of women is painted by this weird transactional view that all relationships are sex in exchange for attention. It's like the most reductionist, sexist view of both men and women I've ever heard.
Remember what
What a nightmare world this guy thinks he lives in. Like, if I thought this was how the world worked, I don't know how I would deal with day-to-day life. What a nightmare. This guy needs to get out of his own fucking head and realize that this is not how other people think.
Sam Vaknin says about women. For them, stagnation equals stability. Once the real doll showed up, they feared that they would lose some of that stability, but now I suspect, but don't know for sure, that they're figuring out ways to use them to their advantage. They lost their minds at first, but now they're coming to their senses, and yet I don't know if anyone else besides myself has actually come to this conclusion. Most guys are waiting for love bots and dolls to be cheap and plentiful, so they can point and laugh at women and see them get their comeuppance. But be careful what you wish for. If you're a guy in a relationship where you could end up becoming an even greater plantation slave, with a doll on one side of the bed and your wife on the other, stuck in the middle in a simp sandwich, thinking to yourself,
Oh god. I need to make a fucking simp sandwich emote. I don't know what that would be used for, but I love it.
how did I get bamboozled by a dumb blonde I call my wife? I wouldn't be surprised
How about this? If you're calling your wife a dumb blonde, you probably shouldn't be married to her, you fucking asshole.
if women have already played out everything I've said in this video in their minds, and figured out that they could just trick men's dicks into thinking that they have control. The only way to control a woman so she doesn't use a robot or doll to control you is by creating an intermediary system that makes sure that they can't do it to you. A way to shut them off if they misbehave. But that's a story for another day.
I know the vid isn't visible, he's just putting up, pictures of scantily clad women, so I'm just not showing it because it's super unnecessary.
It'd be ironic if women were just pretending to be pissed off about love dolls and showing opposition, when in reality what they were doing is making us think that we're winning the battle of the sexes, and so that we could get cocky. Maybe it's all just the misdirection of a muff magician. Of course, for guys that are single and not interested...
A muff magician. Jesus. Altered Rin says this is a chud to check out. Hold on, let me click. Motherfucker! I want the sweet release of death in Minecraft.
interested in relationships a doll means, the odds of such men becoming friend-zone simps goes down, so they certainly don't like that. But the desirable chads are still out there on the prowl, and they don't have to settle for a doll because they have access to as
I
many...
gotta remember the fucking thing for this is DQW4W. DQW. If the YouTube link starts with DQW, do not click. DQW. I gotta remember that.
real-life dolls as possible. And more
If this is a Rickroll, this next link, I swear.
Don't date robots! Brought to you by Space Pope.
Yeah, Futurama. That is funny. Hey, I'm no robophobe.
more importantly, he's desired by real women. I guess the moral of the story for this video is, don't put it past women to take something that looks like a bad situation and not work it out in their favor somehow. It all comes down to having a frame of reference. When the dolls first showed up, they saw them as a replacement for themselves. But if
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. And again, if the only way you view relationships is as a transactional one in which you get sex and she gets attention, then women are probably happy you're not trying to court them any longer. Because that's awful. Thank you, James 089176 for following.
this article is correct, then they'll just use them as another form of enslavement for us dudes. This article is telling men that women have finally found a frame of reference.
We're already almost at 1,700 followers. I'm at 1,683 followers or so. Feels like I just hit 1,500 the other day, so thank you for everyone for coming to the stream and following. I really appreciate it.
At least the ones in relationships might have found a way to make things work. But I think the angry, fat, and ugly feminists are out of luck. I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to push for the ban on dolls and robots, even while the majority of decent-looking women find a work around the problem. There's a certain psychological component that needs to be addressed here. If women ban such technology, then it makes men more curious about it.
No one's gonna ban your sex toys. No one cares if you use a sex doll. It's fine.
Men might fly to foreign countries where they can buy or rent
Krista
dolls
Willow
like
for
this.
following.
While they're there in those countries, they might just pay real-life women for sexual services too. That, of course, would deprive the women in the countries of origin where they were banned. But again, this idea of frame of reference is very important. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, for example, people couldn't understand them at first.
Oh god, can we not use cryptocurrencies as an example of a good thing? Jesus Christ. And I always say this, but as someone who made about $500 on cryptocurrency some years ago, it's a bad idea. Don't do cryptocurrency. It's a bubble. It's a bubble entirely based upon the idea of the greater fool theory. So many people are buying Bitcoin even understanding that it's bullshit and a speculation bubble. But they're still hoping that they can get on the bubble and foist their shares off onto someone else at a profit before the bubble pops. It's a real bad idea. Don't
Because
get
it was
into
something
Bitcoin.
they'd never seen before. For me, it wasn't until I thought of them as a digital local currency that couldn't be controlled by banksters and corrupt governments that I finally understood what they were for. Just like when women realize that this technology will never replace real-life female validation and companionship to some extent, that they will feel comfortable with it being around. It's the nasty women with horrible personalities and that are a chore of a whore to be around that will suffer the most, because they lack those two things. It's only once lifelike dolls in conjunction with pleasant artificial intelligence are created that female validation and companionship will disappear forever.
No, it won't. This is like saying, oh, when microwave meals got invented, all home cooking ceased. No, because most people like home-cooked meals more, and they're more substantive. Sure, there's a convenience factor to microwaved meals, but it's not the same thing, right? And a sex doll doesn't even fill the same role. Even if you had a sex doll that had artificial intelligence that behaved just like a human being, unless it's actually sapient and like has self-awareness, it still isn't a real person. It's still just a doll, right? And no matter how realistically that doll behaves, it's not a real person, and that's not a substitute for a real relationship with a real person. Very
But as
strange.
I mentioned in previous videos, many guys will know that it's not really a woman, and still crave the real instead of the substitute. It'll be interesting to see how women work that situation in the future too. Anyways, that's it for today. Thanks again to James for the donation, and I hope you enjoyed the topic. Don't forget to smash
Enjoy
the like
your
button the way
cake,
that your lazy
Sandris.
wife will force you to bang a lifeless doll instead of her because she has a headache. Bang the bell and check out the mystery link. Follow me on BitChute, Twitter, and Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Subscribe to me on Minds, Gab, and MGTOW.tv to get the video for the day after tomorrow. This channel's been demonetized, so if you want to get back at corporate censors...
Alright, that's Sandman talking about sex dolls. Very strange.